Hey guys, this is RobinNats1 here, and I'm here to do a spoiler review of the Suicide Squad movie. Um, don't watch this movie if you haven't seen Suicide Squad. Simply because I'm going to be talking a lot about the movie and its ideas, and I'm going to be giving away quite a lot of the plot point away to you guys. So don't watch this if you haven't watched Suicide Squad yet. Feel free to come back. I'm always here. But if you haven't watched Suicide Squad, go watch that film and then come back. Right, so this movie utilizes a couple of different things from the DC universe. Okay, so what's come before and what are my opinions of what's come before? Obviously I haven't done a review for Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman. All of that stuff is coming. Yeah, all of that stuff is coming very, very soon. My opinion of Man of Steel, in a nutshell, is a good movie. It has very interesting aspects about Superman, and about his place in a post 9/11 world. I thought that there were some very interesting aspects about the film. When the film came out, this was my number 2 favourite films of the year it came out. And it was the second best DC Extended Universe movie. That's a mouthful to say. That had come out. Obviously, in the end of Man of Steel, Superman kills Zod and basically leaves a very, very destroyed Metropolis. Which is where Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice comes in, which deals with all of the events of Man of Steel and what happened after that movie. This movie was not very good. It didn't make any kind of cohesive sense. The battle between Batman and Superman happened under very superficial reasons, and basically happened in the Act 3. Then you had Doomsday shoehorned in, and that didn't make any sense. And you basically killed off Man of Steel before he actually got into Justice League, and it all kind of breaks away, so yeah. I thought Wonder Woman was very good in this film, but we're not really talking about that bit yet. And basically, the end of this movie leaves off with Batman wanting to create the Justice League. And that's where you have the Suicide Squad. Because, yeah, that makes sense. So now that you know the background of how I view the DC Extended Universe, overall opinion is basically the DC Extended Universe just isn't working for me. And I tried my best to really, really like the movies and like what was going on. And I really wanted to like these films, because at the moment I'm kind of iffy on the CW stuff at the moment. The only thing I'm really liking is Flash. Green Arrow is okay in parts, and Supergirl I just don't care about. it's not the Supergirl I wanted to particularly see. So going into this movie, I had quite low expectations. My expectations weren't huge like they were with Dawn of Justice. I was looking forward to this movie, but I was highly apprehensive of what I was seeing. For example, I was very unsure about Harley Quinn, Deadshot, I was unsure about. I was just generally unsure about this movie. And I'm happy to say that this is actually one of my favourite DC Extended Universe movies. Yeah, this movie was way better than the movies that came before it. Which is good, because at least the DC Extended Universe can get the villains right. And it's really interesting to see that the DC Extended Universe has chosen to introduce the Suicide Squad in its third movie, because we don't have the Justice League, who are basically the main heroes of the DC Universe, aren't they? You know, they're the ones that we look up to. Like, in the Avengers movie, we looked up to, these golden, these perfect heroes. And the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe reacted to these Avengers and reacted to aliens and that kind of stuff. They were the jumping off platform to a lot of the stuff we are getting now in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Whereas in DC, we don't have that. All we have is the fact that Superman came down from the sky and now there are aliens living among us. And we're only just starting to get the concept of a Justice League. We're not even at the point where we've had a Justice League movie, and yet we're already seeing the Suicide Squad. So what is that saying about the DC Cinematic Universe? Well, it says this. That basically the government would rather do this than make its own Justice League team. And I think that's very, very interesting, is where this movie is placed within this DC universe. It's very interesting because the platforms weren't set up. So basically, before there was a Justice League movie, you had the Suicide Squad. You had a team of bad guys going around on missions and actually saving the world, but they were despicable people. And I think that idea is very, very interesting. So basically, the movie introduces the idea that sort of follows up from what the Dawn of Justice started off with, was the government want to basically create a group of metahumans that can basically combat future threats like Superman. One of the people actually bring up a interesting idea that what if Superman had basically tore off the roof of the White House and kidnapped the president. And basically the government wouldn't be able to respond to that. They wouldn't be able to fight that. So that's why that's why the Suicide Squad is formed. It's formed to combat these threats. And Amanda Waller adds Amanda Waller basically brings in the human aspect that was missing from the Dawn of Justice movie. She brings up this very human response to the argument with Batman and Superman. She completely takes the ideas away. She completely takes away the God aspect and introduces an honest-to-goodness human reaction to everything. And I think that was a very interesting move on the Suicide Squad's part, because and basically, I like how everything ties back into Superman having come in. Like, Superman was the very first comic book. He was the very first superhero. And everything about the DC Universe, about this DC Universe, is tying back into the fact that Superman was the very first hero. And I absolutely loved that idea. And I also love the fact that the government are much quicker than the Marvel Cinematic Universe was to respond to these superhuman threats. Like, it took Avengers Age of Ultron for the government to finally step in. And now, that in this DC universe, the government step in by the third movie. And by the second movie, they were discussing this. So basically, within the aftermath of this movie, we already have the discussion, and in this movie, we already have the team that will combat threats like Superman, Doomsday, all that kind of different stuff, and I think that's absolutely fascinating. Okay, so that's one of the main big things about this movie. The second major thing was, yes, Enchantress is the main bad guy of this movie. And yeah. Enchantress is the major bad guy of this movie. And a lot of Justice League Dark aspects are borrowed for this movie. Originally there was going to be a Justice League Dark film that I would have absolutely loved to have seen, by the way. But it's interesting that they took the Justice League Dark aspect, got rid of the mysticism, but just had Enchantress be the main villain, and the Suicide Squad go on to fight her. That was a really cool move on Suicide Squad's part. Basically, Enchantress wants to destroy the Earth using a machine that basically wipes out humanity's technology, I think. And it basically built an army using her powers. And she teams up with her brother, who I'm not sure was a comic book thing, but yeah, apparently Enchantress has a brother. And basically Enchantress's brother looks absolutely awful, but yeah. Basically, she corrupts most of the citizens of she corrupts most of the citizens and uses them to fight these people. Okay, so already we are getting the introduction of magic. That's what Enchantress is there to be. So we have aliens. So basically in Justice League Dark, Enchantress basically used her reality altering powers to basically shift the Earth into this very weird distortion. And that's really basically what she's doing in this film. Is she's basically trying to warp reality and trying to get the humans to bow down to her. And she brings up a pretty major point that Dawn of Justice introduced, which was metahumans are becoming the more dominant force in the DC universe. Enchantress is actually not a magical being. She's an extra-dimensional creature, which was a very, very good move, because magic is actually very, very overly complicated in the DC universe. Guys, I read this book, and I was very, very confused. And I think many, many moviegoer would be very confused if Enchantress was just what she was in the comics. So, making her an extra-dimensional being was a very, very good move. So now I guess I should talk about the characters very briefly before I finish off this review. I thought Amanda Waller was absolutely brilliant. She was very much like the pre-New 52 version. I thought Harley Quinn was pretty good. I thought that Will Smith as Deathshot was pretty good. El Diablo was an amazing character that just came out of nowhere. And they were really the main four that really mattered in this film. Joker, for whilst he was in the movie, was good, and I liked his relationship with Harley. I thought that was a very interesting dynamic in the film. But Joker's not in the movie enough to really be an important character. I think a lot of his stuff in this film is set up for the Batman movie, or just set up for future movies to come. All in all, I thought that the villains were sympathetic enough that you could be attached to them without thinking they were too overly unsympathetic. It's very, very hard to sympathize with these types of villains, but I think they managed to do a pretty good job. All in all, I thought this movie was a very, very good for the ideas being presented. I just thought the movie was very, very good and worked well. And it'll be very interesting to see where DC takes off in future movies. I'm more excited about DC now than I have been, but I'm very, very cautiously optimistic about these films. Simply because DC have DC have yet to prove themselves that they are as good as Marvel. I think the ideas that they present are good, but they need more to sell me on the fact that they're good. Anyway, I'm rambling, but I shall see you guys all later for another review. Bye.